Earth. How did it appear? And what has been happening to her all these centuries? 10 minutes of an interesting chronology of events that began billions of years ago and ended with today's time in which we live. Let's mentally fast forward almost 5 billion years ago. And what will we see? Our Earth is not even in sight yet, but a new star has already been born. This is our Sun surrounded by stardust. It was at this time that the most interesting things began to happen. The cosmic dust that is in space began to contract and gradually small stones began to form. This truly magical and at the same time simple process lasted a very long time. Gravity has been pulling these rocks together for millions of years. 4.5 billion years ago, our Earth took the shape of a ball, or, more precisely, the shape of an ellipse. But for now, she was a fireball. The temperature on Earth exceeded 1200 degrees Celsius. Only carbon dioxide and nitrogen enveloped the Earth. There was no air. The Earth was composed of liquid lava and there were no solid surfaces yet. And at the same time, another unexpected event happened. Almost as young a planet as our Earth, under the name of Dea, unexpectedly headed for Earth. At a speed of about 15 kilometers per second, a planet the size of Mars was rapidly approaching Earth. There was a total collision. After only 1,000 years, a ring was formed around the Earth, similar to that of Saturn. And after some more time, a ball with a diameter of about 3,000 kilometers appeared from this ring. This is how our Moon was born. And at the same time, the Moon was originally much closer to the Earth than it is now. Due to the impact, the Earth's rotation was very fast and the day lasted only 6 hours. 600 million years ago, meteorites began to fall on the young Earth, and in huge numbers. These meteorites appeared from the creation of the solar system. There was a small amount of water in each meteorite. Meteorites have been continuously falling to Earth for 20 million years. During such a long-lasting attack, reservoirs began to appear on the ground. The temperature on Earth cooled to 70 degrees Celsius, but the core of the Earth remained just as hot. Due to the accumulation of a huge amount of water and lava, the planet began to be covered with crust, which later became known as the Earth. So the water that we see now on our Earth and which we use is of unearthly origin, and the age of this water is millions and millions of years old. Due to the strong attraction of the Moon, which was still at a close distance from the Earth, the oceans raged with incredible terrible force for many millions of years. Over time, the Moon gradually receded, and the seas and oceans calmed down, and the Earth began to rotate more slowly. 700 million years after its creation, the planet was covered by the ocean and only small islands appeared everywhere. It was then that the lava, which had not yet completely cooled down, broke through the water and froze due to the huge amount of water. This is how islands began to be created on Earth, which later scientists called volcanic. 3 billion years later, when our planet became more or less similar to the planet on which we now live, meteorites continued to fall. But they brought not only water to the Earth. Falling to the bottom of the ocean, contact meteorites with water began to emit various chemicals that were created in the process with water and other substances. As a result of various reactions, microscopic living creatures began to appear, unicellular bacteria. It's incredible, but that's how life began to appear. This was a turning point in the history of our planet. But for many hundreds of millions of years, single-celled bacteria did not change in any way, but it was from them that stromatolite colonies were gradually created. Underwater stromatolites, with the help of the well-known word photosynthesis, began to absorb sunlight and with the help of it began to process carbon dioxide, water and glucose, turning it into oxygen. The oceans are slowly being filled with oxygen, which turns the remnants of meteorites and lava into iron, which will be actively used by mankind in construction. Oxygen gradually collects over the water and begins to form an atmosphere. It turns out that without these stromatolites there would never have been anything alive. It takes another 2 billion years and the oxygen level on Earth is getting higher. The Earth's rotation is getting slower and the days are getting longer. 1.5 billion years ago, when the Earth had almost created all the conditions for life, the Earth's core and the fiery lava underwater presented new surprises. The fiery underwater plates began to split and come out of the water, thereby gradually forming continents. As yet lifeless vast tracts of the Earth resembled Mars, but almost everything was ready for a new turn in the history of the Earth, for the evolution of life. Volcanic activity has begun all over the Earth. The Earth is splitting apart, forming new continents. Carbon dioxide emitted by the Earth mixes with water to form acid rain, and acid rain is absorbed into rocks. Therefore, now many rocks contain carbon dioxide. For several thousand years, the temperature drops to -50 degrees Celsius and our entire planet is enveloped in ice up to 3 kilometers thick. From the ice, all the sunlight and heat is reflected from the Earth back into space. But the permafrost was not eternal on Earth. The Earth's core was still just as hot. Volcanoes erupted all over the Earth and released carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. There were no rocks visible from the ice where this gas could be absorbed, and therefore it enveloped the atmosphere, thereby creating a warm cover for the Earth's surface. For 15 million years, the struggle of heat and cold continued, and finally the ice began to melt. Due to the chemical reactions of ice and the sun, oxygen has increased by another level. 600 million years ago before our time, the air temperature became similar to ours. During the Ice Age, all the bacteria died and only those that were deep in the ocean remained. 540 million years ago, it was these bacteria that began to evolve. Due to the increased oxygen level in the ocean, the first mollusks appeared from bacteria, which gradually began to increase and bone skeletons began to develop inside them. The first worms, sponges and trilobites appeared, which were distant relatives of the first insects. Its visible bacteria are now similar to the first monster mollusks. Schizza mollicaris. And the mollicaris were among the first predators on our Earth. Trilobites became their favorite food. Tens of thousands of diverse plants and animals are already living and thriving in the oceans. But all these already quite complex organisms cannot yet live on land. It is completely rocky, without the slightest signs of life. And the reason for all this is the radiation that comes from the sun. And then, after a while, another of the wonders of nature happens. Oxygen that comes out of the ocean reacts chemically with radiation and begins to form a new gas, ozone. And ozone gradually covers the entire planet and begins to absorb deadly radiation. This process lasts 120 million years, and the ozone layer becomes so much thicker that it no longer passes radiation to the surface of the Earth. And after that, 375 million years ago, the first plants began to appear on Earth, which also in turn began to emit oxygen. And one of the first fish, Tiktaalik, is already swimming in the water. Tiktaalik uses its fins as paws. It comes out of the water exactly where there is a lot of terrestrial vegetation. It is this fish that has been slowly turning into a quadruped for 15 million years. It acquires powerful enough limbs to leave the water element and become a land reptile or animal. 360 million years ago, the migration of living beings from the sea to land began. Dinosaurs, birds, and mammals originated from such creatures. And at that time, mosses and giant ferns began to cover the Earth, forming forests and jungles that had no end or edge. Put your finger up, subscribe to our channel and be sure to ring the bell to be the first to watch new and interesting issues.